Hello and welcome to the Holistic Psychiatrist podcast and video recording. I'm your host, Dr. Alice Lee, the Holistic Psychiatrist, practicing in Lehi, Utah. Today, I'm back with Jack. We're going to have a wonderful, fun conversation. The topic of our conversation today is what if and why not? And you'll get to know a little bit more of what we mean by what if and why not in just a moment. But Jack's a digital media artist, music producer, writer, and editor, and his website is Jackintheway. You can find all the information on me as a holistic psychiatrist on my website, holisticspsychiatrist.com. And there you will be able to see all the links to my social media accounts, and my podcasts are also located there as well. So I want to welcome Jack onto our show again. It's always a delight to have his enthusiastic and positive energy here on our podcast and video, and he's been such a wonderful help. So welcome again to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be on the show. This is going to be really fun. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear you talk about what the context is for what if and why not, particularly since you were just writing about it earlier last week.
Yeah. And also I wanted to say that Jack and I have been tinkering just before starting today. We're trying a new recording system called Riverside, so I hope that this all works out really well. But the context with what if and why not is all about some of the things that we often do in our minds sometimes in terms of what would happen, what kind of choices we would make if something happens, and why we would make those choices to kind of like understand what motivates us. For example, have you ever thought in your mind, what if I was caught in a house fire and I had to pick something like real quick to run out of the house? What would I pick? Or, if I were in a Holocaust situation, what would I do under those circumstances? Or what if I was at gunpoint and they were trying to steal my purse or something? What would I do? So sometimes I would think about these things, and there's like one situation that I am writing about in my book about what if I had to choose between going back to more of a traditional psychiatry practice, or I can't work at all. Like I have to, not be a holistic psychiatrist, and what would I do? So that's kind of the starting point for that particular chapter, because I wanted to, talk a little bit and we can talk about that or some other topic. It's up to Jack and I, kind of, it depends on where we want to go with this topic, but I explore that in my chapter and talk about if that circumstance were to happen to me, what my choices would be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, in some ways, the what ifs you were talking about as examples are sort of like thought experiments in many ways. Sort of like, what if this happened? Would you stay calm? Would you do this? What would you do? What would your body be doing? Questions like that. I think a lot of the time it gives us a chance to think a bit more flexibly and get a little less comfortable without actually having to experience the house fire or the Holocaust or, something horrific like that. And in your case, I really appreciated, just to give the listener some context, earlier this week, we've been kind of discussing sort of your writing and the way that you've been writing, long form about this kind of topic. And it's really great to be able to speak about it sort of more casually. So in that sense, I feel like this what if that you're talking about when it comes to whether what if you have to, your career as a holistic psychiatrist ends in some form or fashion, what if that, I think what's interesting about that to me is that is such a, it's not necessarily just like a tangible sense, like a visceral thing, like a house fire or something like that. But there's so much conceptual sort of quality to it, because there's the concept of being a holistic psychiatrist. There's the concept of people thinking of you as a healer, or you helping people heal themselves and things like that. And so I would love to hear from you kind of when you go about that thought experiment, what comes up for you when you say, what if my career ends tomorrow or something, something like that?
Yeah. Well, as a holistic psychiatrist, there's always the challenges of, doing something that is outside of conventional assumptions about what is the right thing to do when encountering mental health issues. And of course, there's a lot of research and a lot of textbooks and a lot of journals that back up a holistic approach, but it's still it's still a choice that requires definite courage to go in that direction, because it's not as widely accepted by society. And so it's much easier for a doctor to just kind of do what they're told, the way they're taught, and just prescribe medications rather than nutritional supplements. So in my situation, having done both, I did the traditional route for about 8 years after I graduated, and just the training itself took about 10 years. So I would say 18 years of my life was really just doing what I was trained to do, which is do psychotherapy and prescribe medications. And the bottom line is that when you do any kind of work, whether it's, in your situation as an artist, a musician, or whether it's someone in, let's say, law or ballet or something, you have to do it based upon the meaning that work gives that person, that life, and also the kind of human dignity that you put as forefront in terms of your values. Like, when I think about human dignity, and if I had to choose between, medicating patients versus, just doing something else, let's say I am not given the option of being a holistic psychiatrist after knowing what I know about how people can heal holistically. The question I think I weigh in my mind is, in terms of human dignity and meaning, would it be damaging for me to go back to more of a traditional mindset or traditional way of practicing? And I would say that for me, it would hurt my inner value for human dignity and meaning to work so badly that I couldn't take the money that I would earn as a regular psychiatrist and be happy with it. Meaning that, first of all, I believe deep down and wholeheartedly that when I am in my role as a psychiatrist, that I am first to do no harm, and that I am here to help the patient. So my first allegiance is to the patient. And so if I betray that allegiance and I go back to doing something that I know is not really that healing, it actually, in the end, puts those individuals in a harder position to be well. That robs me of my meaning in my work. And I think that in terms of life issues, when it comes to the values that I have in terms of human dignity, I would lose respect for myself, and I would feel like I'm devaluing the value and the human dignity of another person I'm there to serve or to help. So when I think about that, then I don't have really much of a choice. Like, if I can't practice as a holistic psychiatrist, I know that if I were to just do it for the money and just, be a regular psychiatrist, I would literally hurt myself by doing that. I think my mental health, my physical health would be hit by that choice. And I would be better off doing something else that I truly wholeheartedly believe in and can help people. Because there's so many other ways in which we can find meaning and purpose and human dignity in terms of our work, besides medicine, and I would rather start over and do something else that would truly be aligned with that than just take the easy way and say, well, I'm trained to prescribe, so that's what I'm going to do. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
So that's kind of the, why not? But ultimately, I think that I truly believe that the holistic route is the most healing approach. It's the most effective. It works quite fast. And it prevents further problems down the road that can be caused by, taking a prescription medication.
Yeah, I appreciate that you went into the why not aspect of it. It's sort of, what if this, why not this? And I really appreciate what you said, and I want to kind of point it out because particularly for the person listening, that in terms of me kind of highlighting the value of asking the question, what if, and then why not, or why. But in your case, it's what if and why not that? Why not, like what if your holistic practice came to an end and you went over to conventional psychiatry? Why not do that? And it really is, for the listener who is kind of thinking to themselves their own situation, or me thinking my own situation as an artist, I think there's a lot of value in not just asking it to make yourself worried or something. That's not really why. The real reason to ask what if and why not is to get at the heart of your values as a human and as a practitioner of whatever you're practicing. In your case, it's a holistic psychiatry practice, and in my case, it's creative work or what have you, freelance work, podcasting. And I think it's really, really valuable, and I definitely encourage anybody listening, including myself, when I'm listening back to this later, to ask that question and to ask it sort of like, well, what for? Why are you doing that? Why not that thing? Why not that? As opposed to it just being because, well, it's always what I've done. Because that answer, that's what's gotten us into a place where conventional psychiatry is tied down by its own limitations and comforts, as you've pointed out so many times, both on the podcast, in your writing, in your holistic updates on your website, everything like that. So all that said, I want to ask you something that might be like to push it a little further, which is this idea of the kind of phrase "physician, heal thyself," and this idea of, because when we think about holistic, right? And especially me, when I think about holistic, I think it means that not only is the practitioner, the person who is the doctor in your case, assisting with someone to be able to have a holistic healing process, but you're talking about a whole different paradigm of thinking, a paradigm in which you understand the multidimensionality of human awareness and existence. And in that case, I mean, it would be very difficult to not see yourself as one of those people, a human like everyone else. While in conventional psychiatry, it's the kind of thing where a conventional psychiatrist is like, well, I'm a psychiatrist and that's what I am. And they kind of hide behind the role in a way. And it seems like in the same, and what you encourage people to do, and also kind of have obviously talked about, you've talked about extensively in your own experience, is your own healing journey and being willing to share it so that people not only get a holistic picture of themselves, but a holistic picture of healing, like of what healing is, and that psychiatrists heal just as much as any other human being. And so in that case, I wanted to ask you, really, what if you didn't focus on your healing as a person, and why not, really the why not as in why not go away from your healing? Why still focus on your healing process, like the miracle mornings, as you've been talking about? Like, why is that important to you? Why is your own healing important to you? And feel free to talk about it as in how it serves you as a holistic psychiatrist or just as a human being.
Wow. I love that question, Jack.
Yay.
That's kind of cool to be able to talk about something like that. Actually, I was just writing about it as I was journaling this morning for my miracle morning.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to do this miracle morning. Again, it's a book by Hal Elrod. He wrote a book called Miracle Morning. So I'm trying to do this every morning and trying to be more systematic about doing the routine without checking my email and cell phone first, or rolling out of bed and doing stuff around the house first. So the whole thing about healing is that the healer always gets entangled with the healing process, right? So if a healer is involved in a holistic paradigm, you're kind of entangled in that holistic healing process. If a healer is involved in more of a traditional psychiatry paradigm, you get entangled in that particular framework. And it's interesting because I have been entangled in both, in the sense that initially when I was in the traditional psychiatry realm and I was a resident, and I've shared this before in other venues, but I was put on I was put on Zoloft because I was feeling very despondent and I wanted to quit psychiatry at the time in my residency. And so I was put on Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. It was only about 25 milligrams, and I was left on it for about 5 years. And when I tried to get off of it, I experienced a lot of withdrawal symptoms and even suicidal thoughts, just coming off 25 milligrams of Zoloft. And then, of course, I can contrast that with my holistic approach. I feel like since I've kind of discovered more of a holistic approach, I started taking some nutritional supplements. I've been learning more about energy medicine. And as I moved down that path, what I found is that my supplements have really been positive in terms of my health. It's had this kind of wonderful anti-aging effect. It's really helped me go through, menopause, great. And in terms of the energy medicine piece, I will use it to kind of help me overcome different challenges or on a really daily basis. And you've mentioned how you would do the EET, the Empower Energy Technique, almost every day just to help with certain things. And that inspired me to use the EET on myself also regularly, and I found it always very helpful. So this morning when I was journaling, I was thinking, of all the people that I've helped, I think that over the 33 years that I've been involved in psychiatry, I am the one that benefited the most from all of the healing that has happened, because I've had to walk through all sorts of different situations to learn the techniques and be convinced that they work. Whereas patients, they kind of go through my life and they get better and they leave. They have a very small window in terms of healing for their own personal journey. But I've been through hundreds of those journeys with them, and I've kind of learned how energy medicine works for them, and I've learned along the way how I can apply it for myself. So if there's one person that could truly say that they've healed, I would say that I've truly been transformed and healed in a very positive way. I'm not addicted to the medium, it's like it's not like I'm dependent on the medication.
Right.
I'm more like using these as tools, and nothing that I'm taking leads to any kind of toxic side effect.
Yeah.
I think in the long run too, as I've gotten better and healed more, is a sense of greater freedom, just like my patients. Because, as I've helped my patients with the main purpose of their own creative freedom, is that I've also found that my own sense of freedom has enlarged. Because in the past, I would have this kind of very narrow view of who I am and what I should be doing. So it's almost like this very simplistic view that I am my job, or I am one job. But now I'm starting to understand that who I am is an ever-changing, multifaceted, kind of endless possibility kind of life. And I could be a holistic psychiatrist, but also I can be a podcaster. I could, write a book, or I could, garden, whatever it is that I choose to do. That this freedom is more about defining who I am and allowing myself to be comfortable with that. Because for a long time, I thought, well, I could be a holistic psychiatrist, or I could be a writer. But it wasn't like I can be a writer and a holistic psychiatrist,
Yeah.
and we just don't feel like this idea of who we are can be so confined. Like we can think that, oh, and here's another thing too, and this, I would love to hear your opinion about this, but I feel like sometimes we don't allow ourselves to identify with something unless we reach this pinnacle of achievement for it. Like if I say I am a writer, in the past I would say, it would feel a little bit dishonest because I don't, I would say, well, I haven't published a book yet and it hasn't been a bestseller, so can't be a writer until, I have this official idea being met. But some of the people that I've spoken to say, you are a writer because you've written, and just because it's not a published book somewhere doesn't mean that you aren't a writer. So to be able to say that you are one thing or another, sometimes it's more about your acceptance of that aspect of yourself. It's not so much about how much you've accomplished,
Yes, I'm snapping my fingers.
Don't Jack here,
it's clapping. It's the polite clapping that they do at poetry events. It's the artist in me.
Really? That's so
it's
funny.
just a way of doing it politely so it doesn't interrupt the person, That was
That's so
great.
great.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, the identification is just accepting that which is already within you. As opposed to having to prove it to yourself. You don't have to prove anything to yourself. Wow.
That's great. And you've just added that cherry on top, the word prove,
I
right?
love adding cherries.
Or just the way, or judgment. Right. Like you judge yourself. Like you can't be this or that unless you've done so many things or whatever. And so all of these different things, the freedom to be who you want to be, and the confidence to say what you want to say, all of these things have slowly kind of come into being for me as I've tried to focus on helping others, which is really not my intention in the beginning. My intention in the beginning was to kind of escape from my own life by helping others.
Right.
Like, in a way, it's like, well, I don't know what to do with my life, so I'm going to go out there and help other people.
Right. Which is interesting because there's something about it that's very. There's so much I want to come back to, but there's something about that we can see as admirable until you realize that exactly what you just said, where it's an escape. It can be used as an escape like anything else, helping people. And I know people for sure in my life who I'm very close to that escape their own healing by trying to help other people. And what ends up happening if you don't do what you did, which is you turned around and then also healed yourself and are in that process, is that what ends up happening is it becomes compulsive and it becomes, you're sort of a hungry ghost, that kind of Buddhist term of being a hungry ghost, where you're saying, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? When a person doesn't need the help, and actually you end up inconveniencing them by trying to help them because you're trying to fill up your own healing cup. And it can be very difficult to turn around because then, after all that time identifying as a helper and as I help other people, it's very difficult to turn around and say, I need to heal myself, because it's so easy for the ego or whatever to say, oh, you're being so selfish. You need to go out and help other people. When in reality, like the best thing you could do to help other people is help yourself first. It's very funny how that works out. But what you were saying about identity, though, I just wanted to mention because you were curious about my thoughts. I absolutely agree with you about, especially, I think the writer one is such a great example because you have that like pinnacle thing of like a book being published. And what's interesting to me is I think almost publishing a book is completely beside the point. Like publishing a book is a book is great, and I'm here to support you in publishing your book. But
Yes,
I don't think publishing your book could ever be enough to say whether or not a person is a writer. And the reason why I say that is because there are tons of people, probably thousands of people at this point, that have published books that are not writers. And the reason why they're not writers is because they do not practice writing. They don't write. So, and the reason I say that is not like if someone wrote a book once that they're not a writer. I don't mean those people. I mean people that actually are not writers, but have published books with their name attached to it. And somebody else wrote it with them.
I see.
And they might, this just comes to mind. I don't mean to put judgment onto it, but like The Art of the Deal, for example. Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, that came out way before he was in politics, way before all that stuff. And it recently had come out, once he was president, that the editor of the book said, he didn't write any of this. I wrote the whole thing, and he was just telling me some ideas that he had. But the other person put it together. That was the writer. And it's so easy. You know, I'm sure Donald Trump on his Wikipedia page, it probably says writer somewhere. And, you know, not to take away from anybody's accomplishment of publishing a book. I think it's a wonderful accomplishment, but it does not make you a writer. Publishing a book cannot do that. The only thing that can make you a writer is writing. That's the only thing. And I think that goes for everything. And I think when you see it that way, and this is why I love what you said earlier about accepting the part of yourself that's there, is the way you accept the part of yourself that's there is by doing the thing. You do the writing. So like the writing that you do, that's what makes you a writer. The writing that you do for so long, it was every week, and now it's still very often, like the holistic update, that's what makes you a writer. The book could never make you a writer, you know?
Well, honestly, I started writing my own journal when I was 12.
Yeah, so you've been a writer since you were 12.
Literally almost, at least 5 days out of the week I would be writing in my journal just to reflect on things. And so, I do like to write. I think, though, writing a book, writing a holistic update, maybe even writing in my journal, all of these have different purposes. Definitely. And different styles and things like that. So I am learning about how to cater the writing to whatever the purpose of the writing is for. But it is wonderful comments, Jack, about just the identity of how we identify with a certain role and how it needs to be carefully thought through.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah, I absolutely want to highlight what you were just saying about using your writing strategically. I mean, to be able to have the capacity to use your writing strategically, I mean, that's beyond just being a writer. That's being a strategic writer. That means you have years of experience with it. In order, like, to be able to know how to write strategically and not just write random stuff when you write. I mean, writing random stuff is great. Like, I do it all the time. It's wonderful. But to be able to write strategically it means that you have fine-tuned your skill set. It's the kind of thing where it's like, how could you look at that and not think that you're an experienced, seasoned writer, you know? That's the kind of thing. It's like, and it's funny, it can be difficult sometimes to see it within ourselves, like the way that I, for a long time, I had a hard time seeing myself as a musician because, guess why not? Because, I don't have a guitar that I play, you know, or I don't play piano, so I couldn't be a musician. But then I look upon my, I guess now 2022, so my 12 years of experience making music. And yes, I don't play guitar, but I absolutely make music. And not only that, I make music strategically. I make music for all different settings. I make music for podcasts. I make music for my own albums. I make music for other people to listen to. I make music as gifts to people. It's like, and it's just like what you were saying. And so for me to sit here and say that I'm not a musician is almost an insult to musicians. Because it's like, how could I say that? That's like me saying that all these other people that are musicians in their own special, wonderful style are also not real musicians or something. But it's ridiculous because I absolutely am, just in the way that you're a writer. So I want to make a stand here. And for the listener too, you probably have something in your life where you might be underappreciating, or it's worthy of repeating your appreciation, where let's make a stand and affirm that which we are here today.
Well, I wanted to also segue from that to how harsh it is for sometimes for us to criticize ourselves in certain ways, and how sometimes we have that internal dialogue that can be very negating of, who we are as a person. And I'm still kind of wending my way through the book on Imperfection by Brene Brown. Again, I mentioned her before, but I'm still wending my way through, and I got to the chapter on wholehearted living and some of the things that she has learned from her research about wholehearted living. And I think anything that we do, such as in your situation, music, in my situation, the creative empowerment of individuals in terms of their mental health and stuff. I think sometimes we underestimate how much courage and how much wholehearted living goes into our choice of careers. Just to give you an example, I was beating myself up the other day, and I was writing in my journal about something that happened. So I'll just share this story. So I have this wonderful patient. I've been working with her for about a year. She has been off like 3 different medications, let's say 6 months ago. So it's been a long time since, she was on medication, but she went through a fairly stressful period where some of the scary symptoms came back because of the stress. And one day she called me and said she wasn't sleeping, which is always a really big danger sign that something's going on physically that is interfering with sleep. So we started working hard on trying to restore her back to health. And it's been about a month since the time that she wasn't sleeping. Now she's sleeping about 7 to 8 hours a night. But her mind is still easily overwhelmed, and she sometimes finds herself losing her temper easily. And there's just a bunch of, remaining symptoms that need to be resolved and healed. But a month into this recovery phase, she says, well, I think I just need to go back on medication. Maybe she goes, I'm paranoid and I'm overwhelmed. Of course, those are key words. She knows that. She's met a lot of psychiatrists in her life. And as a psychiatrist, if you hear those words, it's like, let's get out your prescription pad and start writing prescriptions for that. Well, she's not really paranoid. She has, and I think the way I interpret it, and it may be wrong, is that because of her circumstances, most of her life was either heavily medicated, where she really couldn't feel most of her feelings, or she had brain surgery, and so the brain surgery caused her not to be even able to lift a fork, and so she had to relearn how to eat and walk, and this is from adolescence on, right? So there's a lot of her life that was occupied by things that interfered with her ability to navigate a lot of these developmental stages that we take for granted. And this is she's 6 months into being off meds. She's now reconnecting with her emotional life, and she's, having to deal with things without medications numbing all of the challenges and making her more docile. So I told her, let's take a look at this situation. Let's try to use some energy medicine techniques. Let's try to improve the supplements. But if there is a time to add medications, it was a month ago when you couldn't sleep. But now that you can sleep and you're getting better, let's not jump to medications, because, I just felt like medications often take people to a dead end, and you're kind of back to square one. So anyway, so after that session with the patient, I was beating myself up, saying, what am I doing? I should just put her on medications and that will be that, and it'll be really, quick fix, right? And so I was journaling about that, thinking that I was putting myself in a situation that just makes me vulnerable, like as a practitioner, because I'm not doing what would be, hold on. I'm not doing what is expected of a traditional psychiatrist. And then as I was writing, I felt like intuitively and through a kind of a spiritual connection, I was able to start to see that this is part of wholehearted living. Just like Brene Brown was talking about, wholehearted living means that you really believe in something and you stick with it, even though it might be rough at times. And I believed in truly healing my patient. I believed that she had the ability to heal. And I believed in it so much that I would put myself on the line to make sure that this is being done as much as I can help her to get that accomplished. And so after writing for a little while, I said, man, that takes a lot of guts to do. And a lot of conviction to do. Whereas before, I was just like, what is wrong with me? No. Why am I like resisting, like putting her on medication when it would have been, she would become more compliant on an antipsychotic, She would lose all of her angst about different things that she's being challenged by in terms of life. But would it really be serving her better purpose, for her life? Because she's in her 20s. She has a lot of life left.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Wow, that's very touching to hear. I'm so sort of glad to hear that other piece about it, where you took the time to journal about it and write about it and be with yourself as you kind of took yourself through your resistance to your own resistance, it seems like, and then realizing that you can really stick by it. And it almost felt like you were digesting her reaction. Like you were digesting her resistance, and it came in the form of you beating yourself up. But ultimately, once you kind of digested that and let it go and let it get out of your system, you could see kind of the shining piece of value there, which was your commitment to your practice and your ethic and your do no harm.
Right.
Your real pillar.
Right. Yeah, I just think that sometimes, like I said, back to the topic of what if and why not, The what if in this situation is being in a practice where patients actually, rarely, but once in a blue moon, they'll ask to be on medication. And that is the what if. And then why not is, here are the reasons why we're going to keep working on this for a little longer until, there's so many different options. There's the glandular supports, there's herbal supports, there's so many other things that are holistic that doesn't create problems for you down the road in the way that prescription medications do. So that is the why not. And hopefully, the results will be good, but it's not guaranteed. And that's where the courage lies in, is that we're ready to do something to help the patient in the hope that things will right itself, but it's not guaranteed at the time. Now, it's all great at the end when, she's able to get over the hump and not be on medications and learns coping skills through the process. But as the healer is going through that process, it does require a huge amount of faith and courage in order to walk them through that path.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because there's also sort of an outlook you could have, and maybe this is just my sense of it because I'm a bit, obviously detached from the situation in many ways, which is that you can also see her request for that as even a sign that she's getting better. That, certainly there's the aspect of it's like the fact that you're choosing this means you're looking for like an easy way out to numb things. But at the same time, it's like you're looking for any way out. That means that she's thinking on her behalf. she's like owning her healing journey insofar as she's willing to ask you for something that she knows you would have resistance to. That means she has courage within her. And courage is above apathy. Courage is above, doubt. Courage is a good place to be. And your job and what you're doing and what you did so well by resisting that is you're helping her point that courage in the holistic direction so that she has the highest potential for healing. That's great.
Yeah, I did write that in my journal as well, is that maybe for her it's a sign of healing because she's realizing the part that she plays in some of the difficulties she's having with her relationships. Whereas when she was more confused and emotionally unstable, like maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, she was blaming everybody else, for the relationship issues and not able to have the insight that she needs to be a better person.
So she's kind of peeking over the edge and seeing, she wanted to tell you as soon as she saw something over the edge, but you're helping her stand up and get walking and actually really go over there. That's great.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
Wow. So I feel like we've had a really great conversation. I look forward to having many, 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 many more of these casual sort of stream of consciousness style conversations. For those listening, thank you so much. We hope that this way of talking kind of allows you to kind of go in the places in your mind that are really worthwhile and maybe unexpected. So Dr. Lee, with that, I want to pass it back over to you. And as always, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for such insightful questions and insights. I really appreciate you being present to make this podcast possible. So I appreciate it and look forward to making more fun, stream of consciousness dialogue with you in the future. So for those who have been listening, I hope that the what if and why not topic has stimulated further thought on your end, on your life, so that you can start to think about your own values and interests and how to be your best self. And if you've liked what you heard, please subscribe to this weekly podcast or YouTube channel for more amazing information and to give a positive, and please give a positive rating to help spread the message. Subscribe to my website if you haven't. It's holisticspsychiatrist.com for wonderful stories and insights from my holistic practice, and where you'll find links to all my social media platforms. And I wish you all a wonderful week and hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.